Ou deixa sua bunda ardendo, ou dá tapa, 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 cara.
Welcome to Empowerment Unleashed Now, exploring your inner authority. I'm Michelle Jones.
And I'm Scott Collins.
And this is the place to connect with your highest, most essential self, your most empowered self, where you can explore your inner authority and learn from others and learn more about yourself.
We talk with fascinating people from all walks of life about transformation, healing, hypnosis, astrology, physical experience of being human, and heart-centered living.
We're so thankful that you're here with us. Let's dive right on in. Hi, and welcome to Empowerment Unleashed Now. I am Michelle Jones here with
Scott Collins.
Still him, guy. All right. Well, today, still you. That's good. It's good. Well, at least a part of you, right? So episode 29 is today. I love saying that. Episode 29, net 11. We're going to be in our integrity during Taurus season. This is actually titled The Letter That Changed Everything. And it's connection, change, and the power of the written word.
Yeah.
And this is like, to me, like a grounded example of empowerment. Like, I don't want to give too much away about our guest until like we're ready to bring her in. But I just wanted to share, bro, like, how are you doing?
What am I most empowered about right now?
Well, I just said, how are you doing? So answer that. What are you feeling most empowered about at this time in your life? Scott Collins.
Well, I was feeling how apropos it is that it is 29. It's our episode 29. And, the 29 being the anaretic degree in astrology. So it's like the tipping point, it's the boiling point, the tipping point, the degree where everything that's been, the change point, everything that's been tested, like the tested degree also for the previous entirety of that chapter or season is all like on the brink on the 29th degree. And that's where I'm at. I'm feeling that. Even though the astrology isn't there, I'm feeling that in my life right now.
Feeling a little bit. No, and I think it's really
degrees.
I think it's interesting because I feel like there are a lot of people right now that are living at these quote unquote tested degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like some of it, oh my God, why is the little hand up like I'm asking a question? I need to make it go away. Let me see if I can click like, okay, there, it's gone. That was like, a little visual distraction. But I feel like a lot of people at this time are really, it's a very Taurian thing, so I'm just going to say it because they're throat led, right? Their throat chakra. They're talking themselves into a bit of a frenzy. Like the collective consciousness, not chicken littling it like, the sky's falling, but it's like things aren't quite flowing the way I want them to.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's this pervasive, I guess it's an angst of sorts that to me is being very programmed from, I'm just, going to be straight up, an economic agenda. We're in Taurus season where manifestation is kind of like an anchor of that state of consciousness that Taurians have, is how to manifest. And my Gemini rising little messenger just says, watch people's words and what's coming from their throat chakra and how you feel inside of you, because like the economics of, this is the worst presidency that we've ever had. Or like the stock market, the ups, the downs, the shifts, the twists, the turns, crypto, all of that, I think is something that if you can implement a Taurian superpower, which is slow and steady, wins the race. when the world is going super duper duper fast and they're all like, "Ah," that's when I want to take a super deep breath. I want to slow the fluff down and I want to go put myself outside and sit on the earth. Then
Right.
I'll decide what I feel.
Right. Very good advice. And I do think the other variable affecting things a lot right now, like on the immediate, is that Pluto has just slowed down and started moonwalking retrograde. And at the 3 degree, which is all about belief and like really our belief in ourselves, our belief systems. But and manifestation tends to be a byproduct of our belief. We talked a lot in one of our last interviews about feeling it into existence with manifestation, right? And feeling is step 2. But right after that is the belief. And we've been having a lot of support when Pluto is direct, supporting our cause. Also, Pluto ruling Scorpio, which is the opposition or complement of Taurus, but it's been supporting us galactically in this. But now that it's retrograding, it's more on us. So, like, we're having to do this from the inside out. The belief has to.
People don't know what the fuck Pluto even is or what it does, dude.
Well, Pluto is the transformer, the transformation aspect in the zodiac, in the astrology. And it is ruled by Scorpio. And then astrology also, as I just mentioned, Scorpio is the complement to Taurus. So whenever the sun is in Taurus, that means the earth is in Scorpio. So those are 2 very prominent elements right now for this next couple weeks in 30 days.
Yeah. So we have Earth and Taurus, like
Earth and Scorpio.
No, wait. But an Earth sign in Taurus, right?
Yeah.
And the sun is in Taurus. Okay. And then you have Scorpio, a water sign that the Earth is in. And so, as a water sign, and there's not a whole lot of water that's going to be around our charts in the next little bit in terms of like the nodes and things that have shifted. Like, there's just not a lot of water around. There's a lot of fire and a lot of air around. And so, I just want to say to people, flow. Remember your flow in all of this, your own flow. Because
I agree. And when it comes to manifestation, like tapping into what do you believe in? Like where is your belief? And like that's where you want to anchor your manifestations when everybody else is in panic zone, like you're talking about. It's now that it's retrograde, especially, it's coming from the inside. Where are my beliefs? And then that's where I want to anchor my feelings about what I want to manifest. It's what I believe in. And really, like, it's got to be your beliefs, your personal things.
Yeah. And where your attention goes is where your energy flows. And so if your attention is going on to things that are like scary, fear-based, you know, like your energy is going to flow in that way, right?
You're watering that.
It's just this time right now. And I think that it's going to dial up a bit. Because if you look at the world, and it's so funny because like this office at this time of day that we're recording gets so bright, like the light, it's crazy behind me right now. And I have the blinds closed, just saying. So just interesting. I feel like that from an empowerment standpoint, one of the best things about slowing down in Taurus season is just being able to note, you know, where is my flow? You know, where does my flow come from? How do I stay in flow? Like, I know for me, I have like a flow and I'm very kinesthetic in my orientation. Some people are very visual, some people are very auditory, some people are very integrated. But in order for me to have my chi, my energy that's within me, in flow, I know I need water. I know I need to sweat a lot because that just helps me to keep the energy flowing for me. Like some people might say, hey, going for a run or going outside and just meditating gives me my flow. It doesn't have to be movement. It can be creativity, writing poetry like you've been doing gives one a sense of flow, And to me, flow is about your creation and your abilities to create. And I think that it's really important to get to a foundational level that's very steadfast. I would say that when Taurus is super balanced, there's like a steadfast hardiness to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that your flow really needs to be part and parcel of that grounded, steadfast, like steadiness that you have. Because there's going to be bumpy stuff in the collective globally. Because we are in a great awakening across the globe. Pluto is in Aquarius across the globe. And so people's sovereignty, right? And this podcast is all about exploring our inner authority. People's inner authorities are beginning to rise up in a way in the collective that sometimes, you know what? I'm going to do a reframe of fear. Have you ever had such a great fucking idea? Pardon me. Oh, wait 1 second. Can I do this? A great effing. Oh, damn. I have a bleep button thing. I have to connect it. I'm going to get working on that for the next time. And don't think I didn't remember about Pretty in Pink. But I'm just wondering. Seriously, dude. I know. I'm like
laughing on so many levels, right?
Like a recurring nightmare, like or a dream on so many levels. But let's reframe fear.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this. Have you ever had such an incredible idea that it actually made you a little bit afraid? Maybe even a lot a bit afraid. I've had ideas like that. So maybe the collective consciousness in its fear is trying some new things on about sovereignty and freedom and how to hold that steadfast in our flow that we've never done before.
Yeah.
As opposed to rats on the Titanic and we don't know what the hell we're doing. And we're just.
I like it because then also, and I disclaimer, acknowledge this is always easier said than done, from behind the microphone or whatever. But the easiest way through that fear is literally through it. The easiest way is to go at it. And, when you think of the only real complement of fear being love, like it's the only antithesis of it. They're like the most near thing to fear is love. So like going towards it is the resolution. And so if the collective is tinkering with that right now, that really makes me excited.
Yeah.
That and tinkering with the brilliant, brave new ideas and sovereignty and feeling the fear of it, and then seeing things surface like happens to us individually when we start doing that. Old things will come up for the healing or for the possibility to demonstrate our new aptitude that this is a nothing burger now. I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the collective, that's very exciting. I love that reframe, Michelle.
I just think that's a really interesting, and it literally like just came to me like while we were like here doing this, because I'll tell you what bums me out is seeing people bummed out, right? That's my empath.
Yeah.
That's my empath. So like, how do you reframe that to a place of feeling strong in the collective shifting that's occurring? Because I'm not one of those people, like to a degree, I can ignore the collective and then I get in traffic and I realize, holy shift, the peeps are suffering. Like people are challenged. Like I don't know about you, but we live in Nashville and people just do not use their directionals to merge. And like, I don't know if it's like an agreement between car dealers and like the manufacturers that people are like, oh, the car's going to Tennessee. Don't worry. Directionals are optional. No, save them the money. Like, I don't know what this is, but people don't use them, especially at the most critical times, like rush hour, like 4 lanes of traffic, like you're all going left. So I say this to say that the collective is not on top of the game. None of us are, because the old game is gone. Like our beehive, like if we were bees, our hive that we remember I'm going to say it, pandemic. Thank you for coughing while I said that. I believe there's perfect timing. I believe that since then we have lost our little hives. Like we don't know even a predictable traffic pattern in our like micro, let alone in the macro, a predictable economic pattern, right?
Mhm.
Like people have been as adults, we don't like, especially Taurus. Like Taurus is all about tradition. Like people don't love change. And we are at such a change point right now that I think we're
Yeah.
being, if it were a current, which is how I see air, right, is as a current, and we are being caught in the current because we decided contractually to incarnate here and now.
hmm
And so it's like, how do you, if I were a Taurian, which I can't ever imagine myself as a Taurian, because if I sit on my ass longer than for like 3 hours, I feel like it's a form of torture. And Taurians, and I say this, my dear child, who I love more than life itself, is an incredible athlete and simultaneously could make derriere sitting an Olympic sport. I've never seen anything like it. And it might be because he has a Taurus sun and his rising is Scorpio. So he has both. Our next guest is somebody who has done something very unusual. And I'm just going to kind of, as she's signing in, I'm going to just whisper. Oh, there she
Oh,
is.
I have appeared.
Hello, Amy.
Hello. How are you guys doing?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Empowerment Unleashed. Now, I'm Michelle, and this is.
I'm Scott. Welcome, Amy. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for joining us. I want to introduce you, but Amy, I have to tell you something funny that I was going to try to sneak in
Okay.
before you came on. It's kind of a little bit of a trauma story going back to 3rd grade and cursive penmanship. So that's a little sneak preview, you guys, because you don't understand. When I said that Amy could make writing an Olympic sport, like I'm not kidding. So 3rd grade, Mrs. Cronin's class, we were learning cursive. There's a chart, and they used to actually give you like stars. Gold stars, silver stars, and blue stars. And blue stars were for the people that had the worst penmanship, but you still got a star. So I was probably a lefty, and like my son's a lefty. We have a lot of lefties in family, but my mom was a lefty and forced me to use my right hand, which I think is part of it. So I was just about to say the reverence before you came on that I have for the endeavor that you undertook. So Amy, I have to preface this for our listeners because it's off the chain. So Amy Weinland Daughters is an author and she's a speaker. She's best known for her book, Dear Dana, that time that I went crazy and wrote all 580 of my Facebook friends a handwritten letter. 580. Her work centers around the transformative power of human connection, and it is done through the lost art of handwritten correspondence. After experiencing some very sad, a lot of grief, turmoil, and some disconnection, right? Maybe, yeah. Amy began a project of writing one handwritten letter to every single one of her Facebook friends. Whew. 580, I believe, Amy, in total. Is that correct?
That's the number.
My
580.
God. And the project, I would say from what I've read, but Amy will inform us of this far better than I, but it unexpectedly shifted Amy's worldview, and it actually like deepened relationships. It revealed like all of these new genuine, like I think elements and ways to connect, and how connection can be such a catalyst for healing, like for healing and for joy and for empathy. So without further ado, I want to introduce Amy Daughters to our audience. Yay.
Yay. Thank you for having me. That's a great introduction. I
Oh
appreciate
my
it.
gosh. No, this is an incredible project where we're going to talk about that. But what I always ask folks right off the bat, and then Scott's going to get to the book and to the work, but I always ask, what are you feeling most empowered about in your life, Amy, right at this now moment?
Well, that's a great question. And there's several ways I could go with that. As a writer, I've begun writing again. And so I feel really empowered about that because, as creative people, and I know y'all are creative people, it comes and goes, it ebbs and flows. Well, I'm in the flow right now. So I feel super empowered that I'm writing a very positive piece. It's a direct reflection on this story and how connected we are. And the things that really disconnect us are actually turn out to be the things that connect us the most. And so that's what I'm working on now. I feel super empowered that I'm kind of back in a rhythm of writing.
I love that. We were just talking about flow before you showed up.
Yeah. Flow and rhythm. I love how you use both of those because those are both also very synonymous phrases for writing, right? And it's like once you open the tap, then flow,
Yeah.
the water can flow, right? But you
Right.
have to open that tap. You got to be willing to do that. And then, so I'm curious, like, what it's very Capricorn of me to say, what is your daily discipline when it comes to writing? But maybe it can be ritual, or it doesn't have to be such a Capricornian phrase. But that's the way I don't think of discipline as like a negative thing. It's more like a approaching the altar type of thing every day. But I'm curious about like what your daily rituals are to get into the flow and do the rhythm, just to like open that tap.
Right. And I think it's hard. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get there. And so what I
Yeah.
do is I every morning I sit down at my desk, and this goes back to my story. I write someone a handwritten note because that kind of honors my story. And it also reminds me of like the best version of myself, who I can be. It sticks one piece of hope out there in the world. And then I start writing. And I like to say I circle my desk like 6 times before I get going. Like I'm in a great idea. I'm in a great place, and I pick my phone up and watch a reel on Instagram, and then it takes me like a few minutes. So I do a few things that it makes seem like I'm not going to get there. And then I usually turn music on, and then once I go, I'm fine. And the thing that I've gotten much better is that I don't shut the tap back off. Once the tap opens, I don't close it. I don't go back. I used to second guess
Yeah.
myself a lot. Now I just go. I just let it go, and I don't think about it until the end. And I can go for about a good 3 hours that way, and then I have to do laundry or
Yeah.
just do something that has nothing to do with what I'm doing. And then I'll go back for another couple hours. And usually morning's my best time to be creative.
I feel you there. Morning, and when it's flowing, do not stop it.
Right.
You can't
Right.
just conjure. It's not. It's so like ethereal, mystical that it's not like you can just snap your fingers. It is a bit like getting into deep trance meditation, right? It's not like you have to do that. It takes a minute
Right.
to
And you have
access,
to,
and like you're accessing the unconscious mind, and you're accessing
right.
like the universe then.
And I think you really have to
Yeah.
trust yourself, because there's no, people ask all the time, what should I do? What you should do is trust what you feel like you should do. Like,
Mhm.
you shouldn't go, and there's a lot of value to watching how other people create. I know you're a musician, and I think there's a lot of, best practices we can learn from each other, but really what's inside of us as creators, you have to trust that, because there's no right way. The right way is whatever got you to opening that tap, getting the flow and the rhythm going and not stopping it. And we spend so much time not trusting what's inside of us. I think we all have something very great inside of us that we just have to let it out somehow, trust ourselves enough to take one step.
Oh, and I love how you said there's no right way. There's just it's just the way, however way, whatever way, any way. It can be a
Right.
million ways, but there's
Right.
not a right way or a wrong way. That let's just
No.
get that out of the algorithm.
Right. People want to
Any
clear
way
it.
is the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we're all so
Yours.
different,
Yeah.
and that's how we best contribute, is when we trust ourselves, and then we support each other, in trusting ourselves. Like, what's your big
Mhm.
idea? Let's go right now, you know,
Mhm.
and encourage each other that way, rather than try to shove each other into boxes.
Oh, I love it, and that's hitting really hard too, because we were just talking earlier about Pluto being just retrograding at 3 degrees, which is about belief. Like belief systems, no rights or wrongs in this, but really believing in yourself is what you're talking about too. The trust
Right.
in yourself, like and feeling that creativity out into the world.
Right.
I
And not
love it.
trying. Yeah.
Do you feel like writing? And I get this because I still like even like write my daily schedule and stuff by hand, because I do notice the neural pathways that happen when it's a tactile writing by hand, and I write in cursive too. It's so crazy. I didn't know anything about you, and I read this, and I've been like super excited when I found out what you do about talking to you. So, can you elaborate on that? What you just the tactile experience of writing it by hand as opposed to typing it.
Well, and I didn't know this. I fell upon this whole letter writing thing by accident. So I wasn't the letter writing lady, and I wasn't looking to be the letter writing lady, and I wasn't twirling around the field looking for something meaningful to happen to me. I was just minding my own business. But there is science associated with the tactile practice of writing something down, whether that's journaling, whether that's writing, like, an essay, or writing a letter, or writing your schedule. There is endorphins that are released in your brain that aren't
Mm.
released otherwise. I think it's a more thoughtful approach. It requires a different set of physical and emotional properties to do that. And it absolutely, because the great part about my story is I wrote all those letters, and you would assume that the 600 people that received the letters are the winners here. But no, the person who's the most changed is me, from sitting down and physically writing those letters on a bunch of different levels. And the fact that they were handwritten made a difference to the recipients, but that's what really released something in me, that it's the best version of me, 100%.
Mhm. Yeah. And I don't know about you, the old phrase, no tears from the writer, no tears from the reader. But I can definitely vouch that when that happens, it's usually when it's being handwritten for
Oh,
me.
yeah. Well,
When I
yeah,
accept that truth, what you're talking about, that accuracy that we look for as writers, it's like, to me, it's like, how accurate is that to
right.
me, to my feelings and emotions? Is it like, to take it back to you, Michelle, earlier talking about slicing the pancakes like with such refinement. So, like, is that sentence so refined? How accurate and refined is that? Did it make my eyes water? Let me write it down by hand. Oh yeah, it did.
So like
Yeah.
I also want to bring in, because I want to ask Amy, what made you do this, Amy? If you could tell the story of how this came to be, I would love to hear that.
Right. Right. And it's a great story. And again, it happened to me. I didn't, I'm just a regular skinny hot girl trying to make my way in the world over here. So I was a freelance writer. I had written one book, and I very innocently got on Facebook one day, and I had this girl's name from a summer camp from 35 years ago that I had known. And I always wondered what happened to her. So I type her name in, and there she is, Dana, this friend, and so I friend request her because it doesn't mean anything. She accepts. 35 years, no contact. And then I do the obligatory 5-minute scroll through her life, and I figure out right away, this girl's overachieved in children. She's got 5 kids. And the youngest is the only son. And then right away I can tell from the scrolling that he's got cancer and it's serious, and he's at St. Jude in Memphis, Tennessee. So right away, as a human being, I'm like, worst case scenario. As a mom, I get along and kind of follow along with the story, but I don't hit like, I don't comment, I'll do anything. I just watch. And he goes in remission. It goes back to St. Jude, and I sit down at my desk on a Monday morning, and it's literally like a lightning bolt hit me in my head. And it was like, what you're going to do? You're going to start writing them handwritten notes and cards and just sending them to the Ronald McDonald House. And I hadn't written anybody a letter in probably 25 years. I did not know these people, never met the kid. I hadn't spoken to her in 35 years. And I knew it was kind of irrational. And this story is like different levels of me kind of going crazy. So I start writing them like, hang in there, Parker, keep fighting. We're thinking about you. I hope you remember who I am. And this goes on for about 10 to 12 weeks. And then unthinkably, and there's no good words for this, Parker passes away at 15 years old. And so it had nothing to do with me. And I was super aware of that. But I sat down, I guess that next Monday, it was like mini lightning bolt. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to keep writing the letters. And every rational part of me said that makes no sense. But I was like, no, I'm going to write her. Only this time, like, where's her address? This is Facebook. So I kind of do a little light stalking. I find her husband's law office address. I just start sending the letters there. And every week I'm telling myself, you're nuts. This is crazy. She lost her son and you're writing letters. But the letters get longer because it's cathartic. I'm looking at my life from the outside in. And so I start writing about my life, because what are you going to say after I'm supporting you for the 84th time? You have to say something else. You have to say, my sister is skinnier than me and it's pissing me off. You have to come up with some more material. And so I just started to look at my life from the outside in, and it was super, again, cathartic. And about 5 months into that, at some point I was going to give up, because you can't, it's not sustainable. But lo and behold, I got to my mailbox and there's a 10-page handwritten letter from this woman. And she writes about her kids. She writes about her grief. At the end of the letter, she said, I didn't think I was going to say any of that. I was going to use 2 pages, but I feel better from doing it. And so this kicks off 2 years of me and this stranger writing letters through the US mail. We didn't text. We didn't call. We didn't email. We didn't Facebook. We did none of that. 2 years we just wrote. And the letters are crossing in the mail, so nobody feels like they have to respond. We took time. You took time to sit down and really think about what you were going to say. Her words would marinate in my head all week, and then I'd write her back. And the most beautiful thing was, guys, I had no idea what she believed religiously. I didn't know how she voted. I didn't know what her socioeconomic level. I didn't know anything, and I didn't care about any of that. All I knew was this woman had lost her son. I had opened up to her. She had opened up to me, and I cared about her. And that's all that mattered. And we would say things like, I've never told anybody this before, but I know I can trust you, stranger, at the other end of a letter, because we created this bond. And after about 8 months of this 2-way exchange, it kind of maybe looked differently at everything I saw, because I realized I was seeing everything on the surface. I was looking at my life from the outside in. It was a profound transformation for me. And it was like, if this one girl in this list of hundreds of people who I know to differing degrees can bring this much goodness and hope into my life, like, what other untapped goodness is in this list? So then I went all world nuts. I was like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shove everyone's name into a box, all 600 of these Facebook people. I'm going to buy stationery. I'm going to get a journal, and I'm going to write all these people a handwritten letter. And I didn't think I was going to finish. I thought I'd get to like letter 25 and tap out. But after about 30 letters, I was like, wait a second, this is going to be the most important thing I ever do in my life. So 18 months is how long it took me. And I wrote it took me almost, it was 600 letters, and it totally transformed my life to the point that I cannot shut up about it now.
Love that. I love this. I love this. I love this. So bro, what's going through my head right now?
What?
All we have is time to do things like this.
Yes, time is on our side.
Time is on our side. Like, because Amy, that's what people say. Oh, I don't have the time to do that.
Right.
And one of the things that I say to that, I used to say that to students when I taught for a lot of years. And I said, guys, all we have is time.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to use it in such a profound, lasting way, that's what it evoked within me was people keep cards, right? Like we get cards from people and we keep cards, and people used to keep letters. And like my grandma would write letter to me just to express how are you. It was like just a sweet connect that somebody was thinking of you beyond the phone, because like we have listeners out there, we have a generation that never received handwritten letters, right? Like the technology has shifted us so that like I think everybody has received a card, but a letter on stationery. And people used to go and pick their stationery. There were actually stationery stores,
Right.
right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You would have like, and it was so tactile and things were monogrammed and embossed, and you could get an embosser. You could get like, with wax that you could make a seal. That's up your alley, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I do that now. You
Yeah.
get that on Amazon.
Yeah.
I put
Amen.
wax unicorns on the back of a bunch of letters, and you throw that out into the universe. Yeah, no, because there is so many tools still out there for sure.
So that's like your practice every day, Amy, is that you write a letter.
Right. Yeah, that's how I start every day. And what you said about time is so important, because when I didn't realize the power of good that was going to be unleashed simply by writing a letter or a card, a handwritten card or note or letter. And I think it's important to make that differentiation, because a note works the same way. A handwritten note works the same way.
Yeah.
But people are going to realize you're going to create this moment at the mailbox. And this is what I didn't realize. We all have the power to do this. It's in every human toolkit. It's just almost too simple. We all have it. You don't have to be a writer. But when they get to the mailbox, let's say, Scott, you sent me a letter and we went to high school together, whatever the scenario is. So I go out to the mailbox. I pull this out amidst the bills and the junk mail and the stuff that's even supposed to look handwritten. Here's a letter from Scott. And you talk about something tactile. I'm going to hold in my hand something that Scott intended just for me, that he held in his hands. You know, zero financial value, but personal value beyond any kind of measure. And then you're going to have, handwritten. So I'm going to connect the dots right away. Scott took time and effort to do this for me. Scott had to sit down, find paper, get an envelope. Wait, where are the stamps? I don't even have her address. Go across town, go to the mailbox, drop it in. This is how much I matter to Scott. Scott, and that's what blew people away, much less what the letter said. But people were like, this is how much I matter to another human being. And it just blew people's minds.
Yeah. Then it becomes energy exchange, right?
Right.
To to just riff on that a little more, and the time thing, because that is what's more valuable than a currency is, or whatever. It's like the energy exchange we're having. And, Michelle and I talk a lot about time in different ways, like that it's a concept, that's an illusion that we've created it. And then as you level up on the ascension path, you actually start gaining mastery over time and the ability to manipulate it. And you brought up younger generations. I'm like, well, how do we make the light bulb go off to somebody that has never actually written a letter, didn't grow up with like we did, well, we had to do that. And I think it's maybe thinking about, it's a tool, it's a ritual that you can do that can help you learn mastery over time. Because as we level up, there are certain things that we can speed up time necessarily. But I think this is a tool, a practice that teaches you how to slow down time. It's like meditation. When you go into that writing zone and you're writing by hand, you are slowing time down and you are creating something of massive energy exchange. Right. So the amount of time really, that whatever it is that you've slowed down, maybe you look and you've been writing for an hour, but I bet the content that you've accessed in your unconscious mind and in your heart or whatever, way beyond the hour. You might have accessed 10, 20 years, experiential things that you've gone through in that 1 hour of committed to writing. So you're mastering the illusion of time and you're creating massive energy exchange.
Well, that is such a cool way to put it. I've never had anyone say that, but then the energy on the other end of the transaction, it's not even what you've created that for yourself, but then what you've created for the other person. So it's like the transaction, both sides, like boom, it just blows up good. I mean, there's nothing that can be, there's nothing that, well, I mean, anything could be inherently negative because people can make it that way, but there's really no way to get this wrong. That's my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's absolutely, because the intention
right
is such a pure, beautiful intention.
Well, I had so many people ask me, because if I didn't have an address, my last resort was to Facebook message someone and ask for their physical address. And I was about 97% in the project of getting people's addresses. And they could not, they wanted to know what my angle was. Like, what's your angle? I was like, I don't have an angle. I'm just going to write you a letter. And they were like, wait a second, because we've been programmed to look for the angle. Like, what's the angle? But what you said there, Michelle, is so important, because it was just, the intention was just goodwill.
Yes.
Goodwill. And
that was the angle.
Right. And it reminded me that, what it comes down to, the hope we're so desperately seeking for, I think is in each other. In a lot of cases, we want to hope, we want to be reconnected, and it's out there. We're just one step away from it, one intentional step away from it.
I think so. I mean, like, truly, because when you think about it, the connectivity that you created with just the intention of bringing joy to somebody as well as to yourself, it's a reciprocal energetic exchange, right? Like, people say a lot of times, like, let's create a win-win. This is like an incredible, real-time, real life, really inexpensive.
That's it. The investment is minimal, and the return on investment is you really can't gauge it. No, you can't. The amount of change I saw and the reaction, I just was not prepared for people's reaction. And if you say something sincere inside the letter or the note, I mean, that just takes it again to the next level. The number one response I got from these people, the number one response over and over again was, I will save your letter in a special place for the rest of my life. We all have that power. We all have that power.
That is exquisite.
Sure is. And would you say, like, even so you mailed these letters and for some reason it never even found that person. It was lost in the mail. Wouldn't you say it was still worth it that you did it?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right. So like, that's like, even I love the win-win idea, but like, that's bringing the unattached to outcome really element of it. Cause I guess they could always get it and it not land the way he thought on them, but still, like, there's no like regret for writing that letter ever.
No, it's funny you say that, because I made myself some rules at the beginning of the project, because that's kind of how my mind works. And one of the rules was you have to write the letter before you know if you have the address or not. So I wrote every person before I knew and I don't know why I did that, but that turned out to be a very powerful, for me personally, part of the project, because the intention was to write every person. So I gave myself no excuses. But like you said, it wasn't about that was personal to me. Like, that was my part of the transaction. I was going to write the letters no matter what. And when the book came out, I had a guy contact me and said, I never got a letter, but I was friends with you during that time period. Well, I had made copies of all the letters. So 7 years after I wrote him a letter, I mailed him a copy of his letter, and he finally got it. So that's a great story. And
that is.
Yeah. So
that's an amazing story. I mean, like, there's so many aspects to this, Amy, that I absolutely love. But one of them is just taking something that and I don't know if this is the correct categorization of writing, but there's a lot of nostalgia
Right.
with writing and with letters. And I feel like you revolutionized it. Like it's like something old is new again in like the most empowering and powerful of ways because of the unexpectedness of it.
Right. Right. There was the element of surprise. And you're right. You're absolutely right about the nostalgia, because it's like pulling people back, and that makes it meaning more. And I tell people this all the time. In the age of AI, this is emotional intelligence. Letter writing is emotional intelligence. It's not artificial intelligence. And it gives things like letter writing, things like film photography, things we can't filter. Because you couldn't write a letter. I know my handwriting's terrible. You can't go rewrite it over and over again until it's perfect. You're not going to do that. But the element of giving somebody something tactile that's not perfect, something that's nostalgic, something that takes them back. I wrote my friends' kids, my kids' friends. And so these kids had never received a letter before. And they were just,
Right.
I still have two boys that my older son went to high school with. They still send me notes about their life because they invited me to their weddings. They were just so, and these were 18-year-old kids, but they were so, it meant so much to them. People continue to want to be a part of it.
Wow. This is like one of the most inspiring stories that I've heard about something that's like super accessible. Like when there are people that are sitting there and are just like, what change can I affect? Like, what can I do? Like, da da da. And I'm not saying to sit down and write 580 letters like Amy by any stretch of the imagination unless you feel called to. But what I think is really interesting is the transformation within you, Amy. Like, what surprised you about something during this project that you learned about yourself that you didn't know about who you were before this project?
Oh, I think there were so many things. And one of the two of you said worldview at the beginning. And I know my worldview from writing people who I knew had different political beliefs. I became much more of a centrist because I was like, I'm connected to all these beautiful people that I don't care how they voted or what they
right.
And so I went politically from one thing to the middle because I was like, I'm not going to be on anybody's side anymore. Look at these 600 people who I'm really connected to. I'm not going to disclude any of these people from this story or my life. One thing that came out of the project that I wasn't expecting was I wound up feeling guilty on some level at the end, because though it was beautiful and wonderful, I had opened 600 doors that I couldn't keep open. These were actually real human beings that had real needs, who needed real friends. And I could open that door and peek out and say, I love you. And then they say back to me, but I was like, I can't keep up. I physically can't keep up with all of this. But people have done a great job, because I feel a real connection, especially with those 580 people, because of the letters. And when I've seen one person, I've noticed the hug is bigger. People have showed up for me. I've showed up for them. So I think the thing I found out about myself is I'm just a normal, regular person. But I, like all the rest of us, share this. We have the ability to squeeze and pump way more out hope into the world than we ever thought we did. And I think finding that in each other, whatever our thing is. My thing is letter writing. And to your point, Michelle, you don't have to write 600 letters. And it matters not that I'm a writer. We all have the ability. All you need is a postage stamp and a human heart to do this. That's it.
Yes.
And I love how you mentioned accessing and expanding emotional intelligence in this age of artificial intelligence, as this Aquarian age is starting to unfold. And I do really believe that that's any tool or facet that we can use to do that is really important right now. And as a lot of us now in the Aquarian age are feeling comfortable, or all of a sudden, even if we don't know why, tapping into our parallel and past lives and alternate lives, something like this that accesses emotional intelligence, even if someone's never handwritten now, it can spark those other lives that they now are here noticing. And especially other times, maybe such as Atlantis, when the emotional intelligence kind of imploded and we weren't able to navigate the era of emotional intelligence and artificial intelligence so well. Any of these things right now, I think this is our new way to not achieve that same result.
So,
Wow.
one of the things that I find interesting about what y'all were talking about, I mean, there's just so many, many, many things. And this is about just like intelligence, like how we were talking about emotional intelligence, social intelligence, right? Spiritual intelligence. There's many different aspects. The multiple intelligence theory that came out years ago kind of articulated that. But one of the things that I find interesting is that all intelligence is intelligence. As far as I'm concerned, in terms of the artificial intelligence, and this is like a learning because I feel like this is an unfolding process, I would say that it's a digital intelligence. The reason I'm very intentional about that language is because I feel like in the ascension process that the earth is going through, all of God's creatures, like I don't want folks to dismiss, an animal's intelligence, nature's intelligence, right? So I think that digital intelligence could never possibly have accomplished what Amy accomplished because of the infusion of the creative, the emotional, and the spiritual elements that I don't think digital intelligence is at this time capable of, nor do I think because digital intelligence will never have a heart in the way that we do. It might have a digital heart and compassion and empathy and all of those things. But I know when you show digital intelligence and impressionistic painting, or if any of our listeners have ever tried to engage digital intelligence to perform tasks that are art related, creative, it's going to come up in a very, very short manner because the social, the spiritual, the emotional, the creative components to intelligence that like Amy brought to this endeavor, they just can't be recreated. There's just no substitution for that, period. That's what's so profound to me in this time that we're living in, where folks are very curious about digital intelligence, very wary of digital intelligence. And I think that if we can keep distinguishing what it is that brings our hearts joy, like what is the organic vibe from within us when we engage that intelligence, I'm going to pick Amy every single time over a digital intelligence writing a letter to me or for me. Right. So I just, because again, intergenerationally, we have listeners that are across the board where I have a feeling that we're 3 Gen Xers having this conversation.
Right.
And it's amazing too, but at the same time, the power of, I would say, the pulse, technology is now kind of putting, on culture just because we now have millennials and Gen Zers that to them, like, I know my son always says to me, Mom, you're not native digital. Like, you got to go easy on yourself,
Native.
Yeah.
native digital. And so it's like, and that's why I think that sussing out with Amy, like, how did this feel when she was writing the letters? Like the stationery, the stamps, like the wax seal on the letter. Like, I encourage people, just if you have the space, if it's somebody's birthday, like write a letter for their birthday, or like a poem. Like I started writing poems like for people's like celebrations, I just thought that would be a nice thing to do and it would be unique. And people don't really do things like that anymore. Just very simple, nothing on the scale, Amy, of like what you did or anything, but just bringing back like little things like that. Like Amy Scott had this project recently where he wrote poetry for 3 months in a
Yeah.
Wow.
Cursive. 90 days, started on 0 degree Aquarius, finished it on 0 degree Taurus.
Could you give
90
dates
days.
for the humans that don't know what the
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, January 18th to April 18th, roughly. From like January to just finished it. Yeah. And it
Wow.
was like every weekend writing in cursive in a leather journal. But like this is how I've always written though. So it wasn't. But the new thing was poetry for me. I've written songs and all sorts of other things. But uh but for some reason I was really, when it became poetry, I did become way more romantically attracted to cursive. Like one of the titles of one of the poems is "Her cursive is perfect."
Oh, wow.
So like it was very prominent, like using, because I think when I would songwrite, sometimes it would just be handwritten, regular, it would just kind of random. But when I realized I wanted to write these where like somebody could open this book one day and read it, like the cursive became a whole nother level of connectivity and importance to me.
We'll probably unlock
Like,
something in you, in your creativity.
big time. So like meeting you today is like, wow, this is like the universe saying, giving me a wink. Like this is all supposed to be happening right now, because I did just spend 90 days writing probably about 20 poems every weekend.
Wow, that's incredible. And I think it does, you're going to create differently by handwriting. It makes me want to go write a bunch of letters in cursive. It's funny you say that, because just this week I got a letter from Dana, from the beginning of the story. And she's a 4th grade ELA teacher, and she wrote it in cursive. She wrote the entire letter in cursive, and she called it the cursive letter. Like it was addressed in cursive. It's sitting right behind me, but but she did the whole thing in cursive. And she said, well, she told me this on the phone, because we're now digital too. But she said it was a different letter from her for her writing it cursive. She felt like she expressed herself differently. She said it slowed her down further, which she thought unlocked something else, which is super interesting that I'm talking to you today. So
yeah.
So
Amen.
intriguing. I was just thinking, I'm like, you know what, Amy, you need to get your publicist. Listen to me, the Gemini rising, right? The mastermind speaks. Like, you need to get your publicist to find somebody who is like a handwriting, like somebody who does analysis. I'm curious as to what the difference is in you reflected in your handwriting from letter 1 to letter you're well beyond 500.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, that's really, because I did notice from if you look at letter 1 and letter 580, I'm so much freer in what I say. You can tell all the lessons I've learned from the 579 letters before 580. I'm expressing myself, opening up in a different way. Letter 1 is basically like everyone else's first writing. It's like, what is that? And then you get to 580, you're like, it's glorious. This is great. But the handwriting analysis is super interesting. That might be something I investigate. So thank you for that.
no, you're so welcome. I'm just intrigued by it because the transformation that this kind of created from within you, it's got to be measurable beyond just the emotional. Like, I'm thinking, and this is again the old Montessori educator thinking aloud of the transformation that the learning created.
Right.
Like from a measurable standpoint, people, I don't know, that are super pragmatic like that do analysis like that. I would love to quantify that. Like that might excite people, like, hey, this endeavor is really good because, my frontal, lobe, like totally like rewired in a way that connections were made that I had never made before.
Right.
That was just like a spontaneous, like, thing that came when I was talking with you, Amy, because you were saying like how this changed you and how it changed everybody else. So, how many letters, Amy, would you say from the inception of letter one to now? How many have you written?
If you include Dana in there, because we still write every other week.
No, you can include Dana.
Yeah. And then the ones I do, I've got to be well over 1,500. I've got to be nearing 2,000 probably.
Wow.
You were closing in 2000. I was like, it's got to be upwards of 2000.
But it's hard because I like you said about birthday cards. Birthday cards are a great way because people don't get remembered on their birthdays anymore. It's like it's your big Facebook thing, and that's great. But when you send somebody a birthday card, it's just so meaningful and it's so easy to do. And you can even say in the birthday card, it doesn't have to be a long letter, but happy birthday. I was just thinking about that time, just you're valued, you're appreciated, you're cared for, you're loved, and you say something like that, people will just, and then your own grateful meter goes off the charts, as the writer, because you look at this person as an individual person. Then that's what changed me with every one of those letters I write. I had to sit down for 20, 30 minutes and consider this person as an actual individual human being. And that sounds so simple, but it is a profound experience when you look at 580 people that the universe is connected to you in some way. And you're like, wait a second, this all fits together. And then you get to thank people, because I tell them why I was writing them. I would, I would look at their life and realize, look, their lives are just as messy and beautiful as mine are. They've been through struggles. They've had achievements. You could thank people. You could congratulate people. You could express sorrow. But then the last part of the letter, I would always think, what is this person to me? And let's say I was writing Michelle and we had gone to high school. And I'd be like, well, first of all, I'd be like, you're a rock star. Look at your podcast. Look at the things you're doing. I'm proud to be your friend. And then I'd look back and say, what was my interaction like with Michelle? And I'd be like, oh, Michelle stood next to me at the payphone when Larry broke up with me. And she was like, you know what? This isn't going to define your life. This isn't going to be the rest of your life. The rest of your life's going to be awesome. And you know what I get to do? I get to thank Michelle for doing that for me after 40 years or whatever. And if you think about receiving a letter like that, but what's even better than that? Writing that letter. And think about what that did to me 580 times later. I was like, I'm living the best life. And these people are rock stars and I don't give one crap how they voted. I couldn't care less. Yes, it matters, but that's when I became more centrist. So because these were my people, because I considered them, they were my people. And I remember why.
And my whole thing is, does it really matter? Like I said to Scott and to our audience, the first podcast, Amy, that we ever dropped, because I know that words matter to you, was Be Your Own President. Sovereign nation of one.
Right.
It's so neutrality is the most important thing that you can do if you want to stay connected to the humans.
Right.
Because anything other than neutrality is going to be a sticky wicket that is really uncomfortable and not what we're here to do, is to be polarized. It's the exact opposite of what Amy did by writing 580 people.
Yeah, what you did made every single person feel seen. And the more specific of a antidote you called upon, the more seen we feel.
Yes.
Right. So that's the opposite of divisive.
That's right.
And it's so powerful. And,
right.
I agree.
And we let this divisiveness. I'm not saying I don't still have beliefs. I'm not saying I still don't. But what I'm saying is it doesn't dictate who I can and can't care about. It doesn't dictate who I can and can respect, who I listen to.
Yeah.
Or
you're seeing them as people.
And learn from.
Yes.
And that's what the letters taught me. That's the power of the story.
Yes. It's inspired conversation, right? Like that's like a letter is a conversation. It's someone's intimate reflection of their feelings in a conversation because it's given to you.
Right.
The same way like we give our words to people, the written, there's a permanence to it. And I think a greater intimacy because it's not fleeting.
Right. They can hold on to it forever and it's non-intrusive. If you write me a letter, you're not asking me to do anything. It's all back to what's the angle. I didn't ask anyone to write me back, and some people felt compelled to, and other people didn't. And I still have people apologize. I'm like, don't apologize, because I realized that they met everyone right where they were, and it didn't ask them to do anything. And it was not, they didn't read it and said, respond, read at this time. And then somebody was waiting for a response. It was just like, I have this in my hands, and she doesn't want anything else from me. And we all have that power.
This is like a superpower that I feel like we have like unleashed here today in a way that it's so appropriate during Taurus season, because like Taurians, and I say this as a mom, as a Taurian, they're kind of old fashioned. They like things like a lot of nostalgia. Our producer Noah, is a Taurian. He just had a double-breasted suit made for a wedding that he's going to be in next weekend, that a friend of his is getting married. And I said to him, Noah, you would have in your pocket on the inside of the suit, Scott, what do they call that? Is it just your inner coat pocket? Is there like a term for that?
I think that's all it's called. Yeah.
Okay, so you would have like in your inner coat pocket, you would have, Noah, a cursive handwritten letter. I was saying that today when we were having a meeting pre-show around lunchtime, and he was like, yes, I would, Michelle. Like there's something about just the permanence of the written word and our holding that with us. I mean, I remember as a kid reading my diary, like writing in the diary. Like, I don't know, do people do that anymore? Like, I think we call it journaling now. I'm like, drop a comment on that, guys. Like, does anybody, do that? And at the same time, I think that what Amy's really inspired and empowered me to think about is, what is it that is easily attainable from the standpoint of I have the tools available that I can actually execute the task, not in terms of the magnitude of the task. I'm not saying anything to minimize that, but like, wow. Like I have a friend who will spontaneously stop. This friend who I'm talking about, Scott, and like he'll ask, like if he sees an old person outside, like mowing their yard, he'll spontaneously stop and be like, may I help you? Can I do this for you? Like, because it's like his sovereign service to humanity, right? Like it's his own way, in his own authenticity. You know what I mean? So you might not be the letter writer. Maybe you're the person that commits to carrying people's groceries for them when you go to the grocery store. Maybe you're going to do that for 365 days and see like what. Scott, I think you should do that project.
Groceries?
Yeah, like if you helped, like say you, I don't know, would you shop at the place I shop here in the hood? Like,
yeah, I go to the grocery store.
Okay, like somebody help.
But I don't know if I go every day.
I know, like you would have to like
go after
it there.
Yeah.
But like a project like that, like who the hell would you be after connecting with people like that?
Yeah.
But I think that comes back to trusting, because trusting that, because I don't know how many times in my journal when I did the letter writing, I thought, I was like, I cannot write another letter, but just pushing yourself and just believing enough to take one step forward. Because the easy thing to be like, oh, I'm going to carry everybody's groceries. Oh, everybody's going to think that's ridiculous. And it's stepping past that hurdle and saying, you know what? I'm going to believe in my own crap just for 1 minute longer, so I can get to wherever I'm going. And that's when the world can change if we all encourage each other. Because that's the other part about my story that's great. Because it's just about a story of a regular person going on an extraordinary journey just because they were convinced to do this and just trying to attend it. And I'm not blowing smoke up my own butt. I'm just saying it's a good story.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. Like that's the magnitude of what you created, Amy. Like don't minimize that.
No, I think but I think just the story of trusting ourselves, trusting that energy that we have. And then all of a sudden you find yourself on a podcast with these two people with amazing energy, who want to hear your story. And I continue to be blown away by that, by, getting to share the story with special people like you guys. But I think we all have it within us to do something, whether it's cross stitch everyone something or whatever it is you come up with.
Exactly. Whatever it is you come up with. And bro, I was kidding because that's our sibling relationship. Like that's what big sisters do. Like you didn't have one growing up, but I was a big sister. So we're a pain in the ass. Like somebody gives a great idea and you say to the younger sibling, hey, you should absolutely go do that because it'll change you. And I'm going to just watch over here and cheer you on. But you know what I was thinking about, Scott? And you're probably like, oh my God, zip it's. So I saw this guy recently. Amy has really inspired this. Now I'm going to be like calling you, bro, like text you. I'm going to be like, I have an inspired idea for you. No, I'm just kidding. But maybe not. This dude started playing his guitar for horses and different animals he would play for cows. He would play at the zoo for some giraffes. He would play in the field and be with like deer that were great. Like he just went and had this experience of just playing, using his intention, using his talent, and connecting creatively with others. Now, of course, this for him was specifically with animals, but this is like a beautiful, he just had his guitar and his heart and the intention. And Amy had her heart, the stationery, the pen, but the intention was in the heart. I even think, Scott, that's how this project of ours, Empowerment Unleashed now, previously called Trust Your Gut, y'all. I think that's how some of this started, is just with the intention to share kind of experientially what it is and to try to connect people through the experience of unleashing our inner expert, our inner authority, right? Our inner genius, our inner giant, and so for me, this is like, to me, one of the most inspiring conversations that we've had, Amy, that's action oriented. Meaning, I feel like this is something that people can get their brain around like now. Like I have a friend of mine, he's a disabled vet. And he like wants to do something to impact people, right? And he's like, if I don't have $1 billion, like I can't make this happen. And I'm just like, bullshit. Like that's a fallacious belief. And so like, I'm going to make him listen to this podcast. It'd be like, look at what you can do, bro.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Blown away, Amy.
Thank you very much.
Same.
Thank you very much. Like for putting this out into the world. It's like I say all the time that so many people are like, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. I'm like, no, y'all. We're actually, it looks like it's falling because we're getting closer to it, because we're rising. And so it's not falling, we're rising. And when I speak to people like you, my heart just grows and expands. And I just have hope that not only are we going to make it, but we're actually going to thrive doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know the influence of what you did. 600, you can add zeros to the end of like that, of actually how many people that has influenced. So thank you. Thanks for coming and talk to us about it too.
Thanks for what y'all do and the energy you put out. And I think it's, podcasting is a lot like writing letters. Even you put stuff out there and hope that it's doing good. But the great thing about life is we don't know all the good. Like you said, you can put zeros on the end of your uploads or downloads or how many ever people listen, because the influence is very similar. The influence you have, they call it the ripple effect, whatever, but it never stops. And the thing is just to not stop doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Wow. No, exactly. To keep going, to keep going. So, Amy, what we do on this show is Scott usually kind of brings it all together with some affirmations for our listeners. You want to hang out and stay with us for the affirmation part?
Absolutely.
Right on. All right, bro. Bust it.
Thank you again, Amy.
Thank you.
I am vulnerable. I trust my process. I trust me. I am unattached to response or outcome. I am infinite. I am open to connection. I am inspired to take action. I am empowered by feeling my emotions. I am seen, and I see you.
Amy Daughters,
Jeez.
Scott Collins, thank you, thank you, thank you. I thank you, Amy, for joining us today and for taking this time. And I thank all of our listeners for actually subscribing, for like continuing to listen, to continue to share, to like, to download. And just until next time, y'all, please stay grounded, stay empowered. And remember, your words and your actions matter more than you ever know. Thank y'all. Peace be with you. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Empowerment Unleashed Now. Please subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and let us know how this helped you.
Join us right here every week for another episode.